Yeah, Final Fantasy is another series that I actually wish they would stop making. Uh, this might is this is not like a hatred towards the series in general, but after I'd say about Final Fantasy 9, it got harder and harder to get into. Now, my favorite Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy 2. Before Final Fantasy 7 and all that, Final Fantasy 2 is my favorite. Close behind it, of course, would be like Final Fantasy 7. I enjoyed Final Fantasy 8, and I enjoyed Final Fantasy 9. Final Fantasy 10, however, and I was so excited about this game. I cut out pictures. I remember doing that back in high school. Made my own little poster. I thought the whole Aqua theme and all that, it just sounded interesting. And then I got the demo disc, and then I heard Titus' voice for the first time, and I almost I wanted to go hang myself. I mean, it was just I was embarrassed for the game because usually even if people would make fun of Japanese RPGs, at least you could say well, look at it, it looks fantastic. But all of that gets overshadowed by the horrible voice acting. I mean, it's such a disgrace. I really did not anything after Final Fantasy 10. I just lost interest in because it just everything just kept feeling like rehash after rehash after rehash of the same typical Final Fantasy elements. And while in middle school and high school, I could relate to Cloud and Squall, I guess. The older I got and the older I get, the less and less I can really relate and have fun being those characters, which that's a whole other video in itself. But Final Fantasy 2 with Cecil, I can always relate, I guess, to that character. I mean, I don't want to spoil any of the story and whatnot, but I what happened to all the badass characters in Final Fantasy? I mean, Japanese RPGs in general. I mean, they all continuously follow the same general formula. There's always a 15-year-old kid. He has emo or dresses like an emo femboy character. I, I lose interest in the first time I saw that, and maybe like in middle school and high school. That it was you could let that pass or slide, but now it's just they need something new, something else, because it's really getting, I hate to say it, it's getting boring. I mean, it's the same thing. This new Final Fantasy, I I was not interested in at all. I didn't see anything amazingly new that really made me say, "Wow, I actually want to play that RPG." I mean, Oblivion, that was probably one of the last few RPGs that I was like, "Wow, I actually want to get engrossed in this universe." It actually made me want to play that. Fallout 3, I wanted to get engrossed in that universe. I wanted to play that. The latest Final Fantasy, no, no. And then they did that Abomination X2 with these dancing, singing. If I mean, I don't usually talk about sexism and stuff like that, but that was, I mean, whatever. I'm not even gonna I'm not gonna go into it. Pretty much everybody knows what's up with that game. I'm not gonna go into it, but I don't know. I think they need something new. No, the Final Fantasy series just needs to stop. They need to stop. SquareSoft needs to go make something new. If you're gonna make another Final Fantasy, let that be the Final Fantasy, and move on. They need to start a whole new franchise, a whole new series, because Final Fantasy has. I mean, stop calling it Final Fantasy. How would they do that, or just something else, man? Because I'm really it's the characters, the stories. I'm not interested in it anymore. I'm really not. I mean, it's lost its spark, its magical appeal over the years for me. I don't know if anyone else feels like that, but Again, the last time I really enjoyed a Final Fantasy was actually Final Fantasy 8. Final Fantasy 9, I enjoyed it, but the main character I didn't interest me as much. I think the only thing that really saved the game for me was Vivi. You know, Vivi was really the only thing that saved the game for me. I could go into detail about that, but I'm not going to. But yeah, just I don't know what to say about SquareSoft, but those are my thoughts on those issues.